Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome you to a new League of Legends video. In this video, I decided to do a top 5 list once again, this time for assassins in the mid lane. One thing that I do want to point out is the fact that when I say assassins mid, I am talking about melee assassins. So people like Nidalee or LeBlanc are not included in this list. So of course, with that being said, let us go straight to the number 5 spot. And in this spot, I put my own most favorite assassin so far in the game, Zed. Some people might be a little surprised that I put him all the way in the number 5 spot, but I do think I have my reasons. But first, let's talk about the pros. So Zed, of course, is a very mobile assassin thanks to his shadows. And because of these shadows, he can also make insane outplays, especially with his ultimate, considering the fact that you can dodge a skill shot, or just an ability in general. His Deathmark is probably one of the most burstiest abilities in the game next to something like Veigar's ultimate. But of course, it does require a bit of skill, especially at the higher level, in order to actually make the Deathmark do a lot of damage. His laning phase is also not too bad, all thanks to his W and the slow that he provides with his E, which can set him up for a decent Q harass with his shadow and himself, on top of also outraging a lot of people thanks to the W. And lastly, he's a very solid split pusher, being able to duel a lot of the champions within the game, which overall does make Zed a very deadly assassin. The cons of Zed is the fact that his ultimate, he is extremely reliable on it, therefore it is extremely easy to counter. AD carries simply have to get Mercurial Scimitar and they can cleanse it off. And AP mid laners, all they have to do is get a Zhonya's, pop it whenever my Deathmark is about to explode, and they'll completely nullify the damage. Because of things like this, and also because his shadows can be somewhat difficult to properly manage, he is a difficult champion to master, and to pull off those really sweet outplays. And the last con of Zed is the fact that the current meta is very poor for him, since again he is somewhat of a burst type assassin, and it is easy for a lot of current mid laners like Orianna, Lulu, Soraka to simply either just nullify that damage because of how tanky they are thanks to their shields, and or just to get a Zhonya's. Overall, Zed is still a great champion, but he just requires a lot more work in order to pull off the same things he could have done before. Still my favorite assassin though. In the number 4 spot, I decided to put one of my most nostalgic champions, Akali. Way back in the day, this champion used to be pretty much my Zed equivalent. I used to play her oh so much, but she has fallen out of flavor for quite some time for me, but I recently started to pick her up again and started to like her. One thing that I do like about her is the fact that she's very strong at sticking on a squishy, all thanks to the 3 charges that she has on her ultimate. Her passive is extremely useful just throughout the game and in the laning phase because it gives her more damage and as well gives her HP back. Again, thanks to her ultimate, she does have a lot of mobility, either going in for the kill and sticking onto a target and being hard to follow or get away from. But on top of this, she can close some serious distance to escape from people by using her ultimate on minions or jungle creeps, kind of how Yasuo can as well. Another thing I like about Akali is that she isn't just reliant on one form of burst. I mean, she is still somewhat of a burst champion, however, the thing about her is that she can throw out that exact same burst every 3 seconds or so. Her W does give her invisibility, which is a huge part of her kit, on top of giving her bonus armor and magic resistance. And the final thing is that she does not have any skill shots unless you count her W, which is not really a skill shot. And this makes assassinating targets a lot easier. Now let's go to the cons of Akali, the first one being that she does have somewhat of a weak laning phase. The main reason is because her ultimate is so core on her, but she gets a huge power spike just as she hits level 6 and gets the charges on her ultimate. She does not have any very solid CC unless you count her W, which isn't the best form of it as well. And the last thing is the Shroud is such a huge part of her kit in order to try and make her reset her combo and not get bursted in a matter of seconds. It can be countered somewhat easily, especially if you get a pink ward. Or the easiest way, just to upgrade the red trinket to the part where it can reveal invisible champions. So with all that being said, Akali is still a pretty sweet champion. She snowballs extremely hard and can destroy lower level opponents. Overall, a deserved spot at 4. In the number 3 spot, I put the champion that I've been getting a lot of requests to play. The one and only, Talon. This is a champion that I have been picking up a lot more recently and been liking more and more and more each time I play him. I think he has a pretty strong laning phase, especially compared to a lot of other assassins. He also has very solid burst if you use all of his skills in proper succession. One of the main things that I like about Talon is the fact that his ultimate is so good, and on top of that, it has such a low cooldown. Meaning that you can use his ultimate for either escapes or damage a lot more freely than a lot of other assassins' ultimates. Also, thanks to his W, not only is it great harass in lane and just overall damage, but it's also very solid wave clear. Most of the time, you can just simply throw one W and it'll clear almost every single minion with probably one auto attack remaining on the melee minions. And another major thing that I think makes Talon super good is the fact that his Q is just so strong. It is of course an auto attack reset, which obviously adds a lot of damage. It simply does a lot of damage in itself, and on top of that he can be used on towers, making him a very solid split pusher. With all that being said, there are of course some cons. For instance, he is somewhat of an all-in champion because you most likely will have to use your E to go on your target in order to pull off your assassination. And if you don't kill your target, escaping can be a little difficult. On top of this, his E does have a lot of cooldown, and the fact that you almost always want to max it last because it's just simply not worth maxing second or first. You have to make sure that you use his E at the perfect times, or else you can be stuck with no escapes and no way to get on your target. Overall, Talon I think is a really solid champion that I definitely recommend picking up as well. Jumping to the number 2 spot is gonna be our favorite samurai, Yasuo. I decided to move him up in my list to the number 2 spot because I quite honestly think that he fits the current mid-meta a lot better than other assassins. And the reason mainly is because he's not so much of a burst assassin, but more of someone that can consistently dish out damage while also having a great ability to go straight through their armor. So the pros of Yasuo: his wind wall is of course very good, as it's always been. He also has very solid mobility, all thanks to his E, though it can be a little difficult to utilize properly. But of course, with that being said, his E is also very strong in the laning phase, especially if you put about 2 or 3 points in it first, though it can be a little difficult to again properly utilize. And as I mentioned earlier, Yasuo is pretty suited for this current meta as an assassin, since he's more sustained damage rather than burst that you can simply counter with something like a Zonya's. And his dueling power is also quite strong, especially once you get a Blade of the Ruined King, giving him some pretty decent split pushing capabilities. The cons of this samurai is that his ultimate does make him somewhat vulnerable, since you are kind of chilling in the air, giving your enemy opponents also a decent time to react once you land. He is also one of the more difficult assassins to play at a higher level, contrary to what a lot of people apparently think. And lastly, his Q can be very awkward to land, since you have to be somewhat pinpoint accurate with it. But again, overall, Yasuo is such a solid pick right now in the current meta, so definitely try to pick him up if you can, as he is a champion that will require some practice. And finally, the number 1 spot is going to be going to our favorite character from the Void, Cidan. This is someone that I was very skeptical of after his rework, but after really seeing how strong he can be and playing him for myself, I realized, wow, this champion is just simply strong. He has really great mana sustain thanks to his W, which really helps his laning phase, something that he really needs as much help as possible. His Q against AP champions is so annoying for them to deal with because it quite honestly does block a lot. It's almost like free damage because your shield will block most likely one spell of the enemy champion. Then going back to his W that provides really good damage, especially with the Lich Bane, is an auto attack reset and of course gives mana and has no mana cost. His ultimate's cooldown is extremely low, especially once you get it to rank 2 or even 3, making you very hard to catch and also very good at catching people. He's super hard to deal with, a lot harder to push out of lane than he should be, especially for how hard this champion can really go into late game. Which of course brings me to the next point, super strong late game. He becomes the teleporting maniac while dealing a lot of damage thanks to his W, Q, and E. And quite honestly, is just someone that's difficult to deal with overall, since he is so hard to catch. The cons of this champion is of course he's really bad against AD mid laners, since the shield that your Q provides is pretty much useless and your passive as well. On top of this, Cidan does take a bit of time before he really gets rolling, very similar to how Akali works as well. But with all that being said, I think Cidan is one of the most deadliest assassins in the current meta. Definitely a must pick up if you want to play assassins right now. So that is it for this video, guys. These are the top 5 assassins that I have currently listed for myself. I will be continually updating this list as patches come in and champions get nerfed and buffed. But currently this is my list. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it, hope you have learned something new and maybe pick up some of these champions that you have not thought of before. But I do want to wish all of you good luck in your solo queue adventures. Please also throw in a like if you did enjoy this video and follow me on my Facebook and Twitter fan pages. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this and I hope to see you next time. Peace!